My name is Bill Jensen, and I'm my own facilitator. Let me kind of tell you what you're in store for 2 hours. People keep asking, I'm from the University of Utah, Ed Psych department. I'm a psychologist. Everybody wants to know when you're from Utah if you're a Mormon. No, I am not, I mean, big love, and, as taking it over the top. And now the Book of Mormon on Broadway. I'm famous, and I'm not even a Mormon. Then they want to know how many wives you have. One, one's enough. I'm sure she thinks one husband's one too many, probably, but I actually lived a couple of years in Pennsylvania. So long ago, I hardly remember. It was a little teeny town called Ridley Park, okay, near Chester. Really? I remember lots of squirrels and stuff. Beautiful place, big trees, It was a great place to spend a couple of years. Let me ask who I'm speaking to. How many are general educators? Raise your hands. Let me see here. Okay, good. How many are special educators? Okay, good. Any related service folks? School psychologists, social workers, school counselors, what have you? Any administrators, principals, whatever? Okay, terrific then. I'm trying to get a sense of what I'm going to present here. Any paraeducators? I love paraeducators in my conference because they really deliver a lot of my programs. Let me kind of lay the parameters. I do not care if you get a cell phone call. If you put it on vibrate, get up. I don't care if you text as long as it's in the back of the room. It drives me nuts to have somebody sit right here and text somebody. I feel like taking away their cell phone. Like, I don't know if you've seen the new Tom Hanks movie, but he goes up and takes Tom Hanks' cell phone away about scootering. But you can text in the back, what have you. I don't answer a lot of questions once I get rolling, all right? I'll answer them in the end, and because we only have 2 hours, and that's not a long period of time. Now, I'll give you a real quick sense of who I am, solicit a few questions from you, and then we'll rock and roll, and we'll do this thing. As I said, I'm a professor at the University of Utah. Before that, I spent years and years and years at a place being a principal called the Children's Behavior Therapy Unit, because everybody always says, oh, tough kid stuff, all that behavior stuff, that's Bill Jensen stuff. It's not my stuff. It is an army of people over 30 years. I have an army of graduate students right now, and I get a new contingent come August. They all shine up, look like bright, shiny new pennies. They all want to come to an APA-approved school psych program, and they all show up the very first day. I love them. They look like they're 12. They all show up. They have to take the first class for me. They're all sitting there looking really, really young. They have their brand new, PhD pencil boxes sitting right there, which is a laptop computer, newer than mine. They have the Honda, the Honda Civic, a used one, always parked in the parking lot because their parents want them to have reliable transportation. I think it's pretty cute. We have 200 applicants. We only take about 6 to 8, so they're all happy to be there. And I show up the very first day in a tweed jacket. This whole place reminds me of this, Penn State. Tweed jacket and a pipe. And I don't smoke. But heck, their parents are paying for it. They might as well get Mr. Chips the first day, After that, it's the academic uniform, flip-flop shorts and a T-shirt. And that's for the rest of the year, It ain't getting any better than that. But I always ask them the very first day, what do you want? I know you're going to be here for 7 years. That's the average time it takes to get a PhD from an APA-approved program. 7 years. I say, it sounds like a prison sentence, doesn't it? They think about that. They think about that. I say, you get less time for selling drugs in Utah than you get for getting your PhD. And we let you out a lot earlier if you're selling drugs than if you get a PhD. But I ask them the very first question, and I say, okay, you're going to be here for 7 years. What do you want to know? And God, it's like deer caught in headlights. They do not know what to say. They look at their shoes, they look at the ceiling, and I know what's going through their mind. Please, God, don't let him call on me. All I want to do is get this stupid program over with, graduate, get a good job, and move up to the Accord. No. It's the Prius now. They're all green. They have solar tops on their cars. They look for, whoever ever thought, someone would look for a used car with a solar panel on the top. But I think it's pretty cool, What can you say? All right, I'm going to ask you the same questions. This is who we're going to be talking about for the next 2 hours. And my interest in this kid is, number one, what interventions can you use with this kid? What interventions can you really use with this kid? I always come to places like this, and I always leave somewhat deflated sometimes because I don't know what I can use when I leave. So the time you walk out of here, I want you to have ringing through your head, yeah, if he can do it, I could do that. All right, Mr. Motivators, Dots for Motivations, Principles 200 Club, whatever. All right. So you walk away with at least one thing. You'll also be inculcated with the tough kid sort of definition and assumptions about this kid. But I'm interested in what is a practical intervention for this kid? What can we really do for this kid? Number two is, that's not enough. I found that out a long time ago. It ain't what we can do with this kid, because a lot of people publish this stuff. It is, how do you get somebody to want to use this stuff? That's where the rubber hits the road. And we've been researching that for the last 20 years now. And this has sort of come through in the flavor in some of the interventions we do, all right? How do you get somebody to say, yeah, I can do that, I want to do that, I think I can do that tonight with my own little round-headed kid when I go home, okay? That's important for us to do. So it's what interventions, and then, how do you get people to do it? And then also, we're very, 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 very interested in what is all this garbage about evidence-based practice that everyone runs around? What does that really mean, all right? Everybody uses it. Research proven, blah, 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 blah. It's like looking at the medication ads at the 5 o'clock national news. You don't know what really works, what's really going to help you, okay? Stay young, vibrant, and have low cholesterol, all right? So we don't have time to talk about evidence-based practice in detail, but let me tell you, we do it at the University of Utah. We're very big into what we call meta-analytic analyses of 40 years worth of research. I can tell you, and I say it very assertively, and I'll be back here in August, I can tell you what works with autism and doesn't, because we've done a 40-year meta-analysis of every intervention that's ever been done with those kids, and there's weird stuff that's been done. So we're interested in what is really evidence-based practice, and how do you put it in the hands of a practitioner so they know what you're talking about. And then the last thing, and we'll not get time to talk about this today, it just drives me nuts, and that is, if you really want to hurt a tough kid, how do you hurt him? If you really want to screw him up as an educator and not even know what you're doing, how do you do it? Well, I'll tell you a couple of things, just off the bat, because we won't have time to talk about it in depth. If you retain a tough kid, you increase their chances of dropping out in high school by 30%. No matter what reason, you retain that kid. If you socially promote that kid, you do that kid a lot of good. That's what the meta-analyses say. You want to hurt a kid? Retain him. 30%. Retain him once, it goes to 60% dropout rate. Do it twice, it's 90%. If you want the research, it's Shane Jimerson, who's a really good researcher in this area. Next thing is, you want to really screw up a tough kid, you put him together in a group and lose control. You are going to set yourself back. The reinforcement rate for an antisocial behavior for a tough kid to teach another tough kid an antisocial behavior from what you can teach as pro-social is 9 to 1. 9 to 1. Now you're going to have to group kids. I'll say that twice. You're going to have to group kids. But you lose control of those kids, you're in trouble. And you're really doing a lot of damage to that kid. So we're a lot into group contingencies. You're not into peer control, you're into group control with tough kids. Okay, so that's pretty much my spiel. Now let me ask you just briefly, if we have only 2 hours, which isn't a lot of time, what do you want to know about that kid? Love it. You look just like the graduate students. Yes, ma'am.
How to motivate.
How to motivate him. All right. Now, I will go into this because, this is AYP conference. I'm going to talk about RTI. Everybody and their dog wants to talk about RTI, so I'll talk about my RTI stuff too. But I think motivation has a fundamental component to RTI that's been largely ignored. Now, people look at motivation, they say, oh, you know what, he's just not motivated. He's just not interested. His family doesn't care about academics, Dr. Jensen. There's not valued in his family. I like to say to people, how many non-motivated kindergarten kids do you see the first day of school? Not very many. Man, they're ready to show up, drink the chocolate milk, not take a nap, and rock and roll. They are happy to be there. Thank you very much. How many non-motivated high school kids do you see? They're legion. Something happened, man. Something happened between K and 12. And it ain't good. All right, we'll do a Bill Jensen thought experiment just quickly here. Just very, very quickly. Bill Jensen thought experiment. Think back to your own academic career. You're in an academic conference right now. Think back to your own academic career where you just did a stunningly wonderful job. You knocked the ball out of the ballpark academically. You were the star. You got the gold star. You were the kid. Got that? Think of it concretely. All right. Now flip it around. Do the opposite. You screwed up. You forgot. You walked in. You didn't even know there was a test. You forgot the homework assignment. You failed. Think of that one. Now, which comes to mind faster? 3/4 of you, the fastest thing that came to mind was your negative experience. Not the positive one, the negative experience. Motivation for a tough kid in the Tough Kid series is like this. It's like heavy metal poisoning. It's like when you're pregnant, they tell you not to eat a lot of tuna fish sandwiches because there's a lot of heavy metals in there from fishes, tuna fish. Trouble with heavy metals is you eat a little bit, no big deal. You eat more, somewhat. You eat a lot of tuna fish, the heavy metals go into your system, bind with your proteins and fat of your flesh, and cannot be flushed out for years and years and years. They bind. Same thing with an academic failure. 1 failure, not so big. 2, I can shrug it off. 3, water off a duck's back. 4, starts to have an impact. 5, 6, 7, 8, you hate it. You hate it, just like heavy metal poisoning. So part of our TI model is how to keep that kid going, all right? Doing something that he has what we call a condition aversion to. They don't care. It's brand new academics. You can have the cutest, shiniest, most beautiful little curriculum you've ever seen. And if he's got 8 years of failure, he didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's failure for him. So here's what you got to do in RTI, in our view, from the tough kid perspective. You got to keep that kid going, doing something he absolutely hates. We won't, brush up any language here, for his own good. Now that is a tall number. So a lot of the tough kid stuff, we rely on external motivation systems to keep him going. To keep you going for something that's going to do you a lot of good in the long run, but you absolutely hate because of your failure. Good question. What are some other questions? Now you're all afraid. Way in the back.
How do you prevent a happy little kindergarten child from becoming a tough kid?
Oh, we'll talk about that. High rates. Knowing what you're doing, how to set it up. I'll even introduce you to Mrs. Muttner. What else? Anything else? All right, I'll take one.
How do you get the principals to put this stuff in place?
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. And again, we spend about an hour and a half talking about the effective schools literature and how you do that. Sometimes you wait for them to die. Well, no, I am, because I got something for you. I'll show you the Principals 200 Club. I can catch the fire of a principal as long as he's not been infiltrated by Alfie Cohen and other idiots, okay? And I can also infiltrate that principal if he's brand new, has a special ed background, which is really good, and I can lock in a good data system into his whole school and show how it's going to help him in the long run, okay? All right, I'll ask one question right now. How many of you have children? Raise your hands. God, you're as good as you talk. How many of you have more than one child? Raise your hands. Oh, wow, you are as good as you talk. All right, of those of you raising your hands with multiple children, how many of you have kids who are exactly the same behaviorally and temperamentally? Now, I want you to look around this room. This is a pretty big room. It's pretty full. How many people have their hands raised? Not one. See, someone's always going to ask this question no one did yet, which is, how do you get to the tough kid parents? See, we'll talk about that. Let me tell you one thing right now. We're sold a bill of goods in education about tough kids. We're sold a bill of goods in America about a lot of things, but we're sold a real big bill of goods about having children. And the bill of goods that you were sold having a child, and some of you will relate to this, women more actually than men, is that if you do everything correctly as a parent, by guarantee, on the product guarantee, on the side of the little critter, it says you do everything correctly, you're going to get the Gerber kid. No, wrong. Having a baby is a crapshoot. First of all, you got to pick the right partner. Now, Bill Jensen's going to have a new dating service. It ain't eHarmony or any of those little funky dude ones. Come on, give me a break. I don't care what you look like. You can be dropped on your head. But I'm going to take 3 measures, and it's going to be better than anything you ever had before you have a child with anybody. Number 1 is I'm going to do a criminal background check. Number 2, I'm going to do a credit check. And number 3, we're going to get a DNA sample. See, because when you have that baby, they hand you the baby dice, and it is a crapshoot. And you walk up to the baby crap stable, and you look at your significant other, and the characteristics which you selected on, which is probably not so great now. Hey, you had a couple glasses of wine, it was a smoke-filled room, you weren't totally in control. And you go, come on, 7-Eleven, snake eyes, again. Tough kids have multiple causes. The moment you start blaming the parents is the moment you start failing in this business, okay? And if we had more time, I'd talk about parent training, because guess who the parents blame aside from the significant other in the crapshoot? They blame you. It's a very foolish bet to take. Okay, here we go. We'll just go through this very quickly. Okay, I'm going to give you the only infomercial you're going to get, but everyone always asks me this, so you're going to get this, and I'll show you what this is. The tough kid stuff isn't a system about behavior. Okay, it's a system about kids. Number 2, it is a system. It ain't one book. So I'm going to walk you through, because people aren't familiar with a lot of this stuff, and then I'm going to show off some stuff that we've got coming out now with my graduate students, because they always say, did you show it there? Did you show it there? And say, yeah, I showed it. They liked it. Say, oh, wow. Because it makes them feel like they're doing important stuff as they are. This is the Tough Kid book. This is the classic. It's like classic Coke. It'll have the system I talk about today. It'll have the system in it, the whole thing. The whole system, definitions, assumptions, boom, 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 boom. Number 2, it's not a system. It's a Tough Kid toolbox. It's called a toolbox because it's toolboxes. It's a bunch of interventions. They're all non-related interventions. They're all just separate interventions. Tracking sheets, home notes, contracts, level systems. You name it, it's in there, how to set it up. Number 3, Tough Kid Social Skills book. Wish we had more time to talk about this. Brand new. Number 4, Tough Kid Parent book. I love Tough Kid Parents. I've trained parents for 30 years. You can work with 80% of your parents. The effect size of training parents of tough kids is 0.85 if you do it correctly. They are your partner. They are not your enemy. Number 3 is Tough Kid New Teacher book. Somebody asked about... I forgot the exact question, but this Tough Kid New Teacher book. It's a skinny little book. Why? Because universities cheat you. You know, my dean always hates me to say that, but we do. If you're a general ed, you know, heaven forbid, you've made it through your whole curriculum, and you have never taken a class in behavior management nor discipline. You've taken a class a whole semester in the history of education. Now that is selling you something. Boy, I tell you, that's about as interesting as it goes. Wait till that hits the History Channel. You know, John Dewey, the whole 9 yards. The major reason teachers leave teaching the first 2 years is they can't manage their classrooms. And we sold them history of John Dewey, which is about as interesting as paint drying. So this is a skinny little book. It shows you how to set up your classroom from A to Z on everything that we know to work, from rules all the way through, okay? And we introduce you to Mr. Muttner and Mrs. Muttner. There's always a Mr. and Mrs. Muttner if you're a new teacher in a school. They're as old as dirt. They hang out in the teacher's lounge. They're going to tell you why everything fails, because the kids are animals, the parents are criminals, and the principal's a nincompoop, and you just signed on to a ghetto school. Good luck, kid. So we introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Muttner. So every time, we even give you a picture of them, every time we show you how to set up a system, we give you a Muttnerism. And a Muttnerism is why you're going to fail with this. And then we tell you exactly why you will succeed with this if you do it correctly. Oh, this is for principals. This is the Tough Kid Principals briefcase, because we cheat them in universities too. You'll make it through your whole certification program, learn to be a leader and collect lunch money, but you will learn nothing about discipline generally, or how to set up an in-school suspension that's not retributional punishment, but actually a behavior change system, okay? Next one we'll talk about this. This is how to get kids on task. And the last one. I use this, put it up there, because I really love the lady who wrote this book, Julie Bowen. This is a book, School-Based Interventions for Students with Behavior Problems. Cuts across behavior, social skills, academic interventions, whole school applications. And all it does is go through the research literature, give you the reference, and when somebody says, where does this come from? You can say it came from School Psych Review, blah, blah, blah. Then lays out the intervention in 10 steps, and I'll show this to you. I like this woman so much. It's Julie Bowen. She's a blonde woman. She's blonde. She is a just stunningly beautiful woman. This woman is hot. This woman is my wife. Plus, she writes good books. Okay. This is a Tough Kid website if you want to go look at that. This is pretty neat. Actually, the publisher put this up. All right, we got some new stuff coming out. We're interested in social skills, so I think that ought to be part of AYP. Social skills and bullying. So I'm going to show you 2 things, and I'm going to jump right into this thing, okay? And then if we have time in the hour, I'll show you our new superhero social skills training program. But I'll show you a little bit of it right now. But we're interested in social skills training and bullying because they don't work. That's just stunning when you say that. But when you look at the meta-analytic research, even the reviews on bullying interventions, I don't care if it's the Dr. O program, I don't care what program it is. I don't care if it's skill streaming for school success. When you look at the effect size, they're 0.19 or less, which is very small. So we're very interested in social skills, because, hey, tough kids have lousy social skills. I mean, they, up up there, they're right up there with autism when it comes to, they're different, but they have very poor social skills. And bullying is a raging problem. I mean, it's just what we do. Doesn't really seem to have a big impact. Even the best stuff, I think, coming out of Oregon now, 30% of chronic bullying still exists after you do your intervention. That's high. That's high. And so the problem with it is most bullying programs and social skills training programs, if you want to look at this from an AYP perspective, is we train them in one environment in a very didactic academic setting and then shoot them out into the real world and expect them to do it out there. Well, they don't do it. Your generalization is about 4%. It isn't the problem with the kids can't learn the material. They learn the material quite well. Even high-functioning ASD kids learn it quite well. That is, they can tell you the social skill. They can give you the definition of the social skill. They can tell you the rationale why they should use the social skill. They can tell you the steps to the social skill. They can model the social skill in front of you. They can role-play it with a buddy. And then the minute you shoot them out in the real world, they don't do it. And then you ask them the traditional tough kid question, and you get the traditional tough kid answer. Why didn't you use the skill I taught you? And you get the kid's response, I don't know. It's a generalization problem. You got to train it in one environment and make sure it works in other environments. So all the new materials we're looking at, we put everything in the kitchen sink and a dog to boot into getting this stuff to generalize, okay? And so we've been very interested in generalization strategies. And we've been very interested in this. This is a book called The Tipping Point. If you've never read this book, I make all my graduate students read this book. It talks about why Sesame Street was a success with what he calls an educational virus. Malcolm Gladwell, the author of this book, is the science writer for the New Yorker magazine. It's got a great website. If you want summer reading, go there. He'll tell you why the fattest people in the world are fat and all the science on fat. It's just, every graduate student hits that one, boom, as they're munching pizza, But he tells you why systems change. And we've been very interested in what he calls the stickiness factor. And stickiness is, you ever had that tune you can't get out of your head? And you think, God, this is irritating. You learn that tune in one environment, and now you're exporting it to every environment you walk into. So it's a stickiness factor. We like to call it the George Costanza model. It's the same thing. George Costanza is trying to date this woman, because I'm a Seinfeld freak. He's trying to date this woman, and she won't give him the time of day, okay? Won't even pay him attention. So underneath his voice, as he's hanging around her, he says in a very low voice, George Costanza, George Costanza, George Costanza. And then pretty soon, she's vacuuming all alone in her apartment, and she's saying and singing to herself, George Costanza. We call that generalization. And we think you can use that in social skills training programs. And so we have built stickiness in. It looks like fun and games to everybody else. I'll say, oh, look at this. The kids are asking to come to this. It is so much fun. It's stickiness, and it all has a logic. If we have time, I'll go through a lot of that. There's even a book called Made to Stick, and all the research on it. It has a piece of duct tape on the front. I thought that's pretty clever. Okay. This is our bully program, and then I'll launch off into the other stuff. Our bullying program, we try to build it for 15 minutes twice a week. It comes with a manual, and it also comes with what we call bully blocker shorts. Bully blocker shorts are stickiness in a box. And I'll talk about what it is in a second. This is a book. This is a DVD. It's actually, when you look at this thing, it provides prevention. Because everybody and their dog with a bullying program provides prevention, okay? But what they don't do lots of time is intervention for chronic bullying. That they do not do. And we have an intervention for chronic bullying where we define chronic bullying for you as 3 referrals for aggressive behavior towards peers. And we track it on like a Swiss system or discipline tracker system. And then we do a functional behavior assessment of the bullying situations, and we do it in a timely way. An FBA of why and where that kid's bullying should dictate what you do with that kid, okay? So this is rather unique. Nobody has an FBA built into their bullying that we're aware of, okay? It increases school awareness. We only have it for elementary right now. You can use it in regular ed or special eds, proactive and positive. And these are basically the 6 major sections that has 70 subsections to it that you teach in 15-minute increments. All the way from learning what bullying is, all the way, the really good one I love is respecting differences here. It has a wonderful respecting differences component to it that my wife actually put a lot of effort looking at the research. This is differences in race, religion, sexual stereotypes, but it also has, and we really think this is important, and it is such an unpopular topic in the United States today, and that's alternative lifestyles for kids. That needs to be addressed with these kids. It puts them at risk. But it has fast hands animation, because I can tell you what bullying is in a heartbeat, and it'll go one ear out the other. That's not generalization. And so we like to use fast hands animation with this. So let me hope this works. I'm not the best tech guy in the world. Work. Work. There's 6 of these. And
learning about bullying.
No talking heads.
To block bullying at our school, we need to recognize bullying and learn what to do to prevent
So
it.
the definition goes across the whole school, everybody gets it.
Here are some important things to know about bullying. First of all, what is bullying? Bullying is one-sided. That means it only goes one way. Teasing back and forth is not bullying. Two-sided arguments are not bullying. Bullying goes one way. Bullying is intentional. That means it's on purpose. Accidentally hurting someone is not bullying.
Time is of the essence, but every major concept, the 6 major concepts, has a fast hands animation in it. It's interesting how I got the fast hands animation. One night I'm walking around the university going to teach my interventions course, and there is a student doodling in my class. And I walk up to him and says, "Ben, what are you doing?" He says, "Oh, Dr. Jensen, I would never, ever, ever, draw in your class. It's before class, it relaxes me." He says, "You talk too fast. I could never doodle and take notes." I thought, you must be telling the truth. Okay. So I said, "That's pretty clever. Draw me a cat." Draws me a cat to knock your socks off. I said, "Okay, draw me a dog." Draws me a dog. I said, "Draw me a tough kid." He drew me a tough kid making an obscene gesture. I says, "You want to be in a research group?" And so we use Ben. He's just finishing up his dissertation this week, okay? And we're looking at fast hands animation. When we teach the concepts, okay, to fast hands animation, the on-task rate in this audience was 100% when I put that up there. That's exactly what we find, okay? And we find when we speed up him drawing by 7 times, the on-task rate with ASD kids go to 100%. And our retention of information is about 6 times what it would be from you trying to teach that kid what that very skill is, particularly if we can put it over an open system. This, if we have time, I'll talk about today. This is our new love of our life. This is our ASD social skills training program. And we've just completed 2 dissertations where we use this with externalizing disorders, ADHD, conduct disorder, ODD kids, okay? And what we did is we did a lot of research and found out, particularly by a guy named Scott Bellini from the University of Indiana, social skills training just doesn't work with ASD kids. It's about as effective as it is with externalizing kids. Really low effect sizes. So we started to look and see, if we look at all the research, I started a little research group, if you look at all the research, what goes into a social skills training program that would make it effective? And we systematically piece this stuff in here. Modeling, high-tech information, voices that grab your attention, digital comic books you send home with the kid and print out. All these things we've put in here. And no talking heads, because we started as ASD kids. Children with autism don't like social skills, period. Number 2, they don't like adults trying to teach them social skills, much less with an adult talking head. So we never have an adult talking head. We have 3 superheroes. Initiator man, Interactor girl, his sidekick, and Scooter the robot, who has social difficulties. And we teach 18 skills with this. And this is the thing that just came out in January. It comes in what looks like a game box, has all the materials in it. And this is what it looks like. I'll have them introduce themselves to you. Work. We're going for sticky.
Hey kids, I'm the initiator. I'm going to teach you how to have super social skills.
We got Arnie to say he'd do us a cameo before things blew up in California.
And I'm Interactor Girl. Together with my friends, we'll teach you everything you need to know.
And my name is Scooter the Robot. I'm learning social skills too. Let's learn together.
Get ready.
Get set.
And let's go learn.
Superhero social skills.
Now, we've done 6 dissertations on this, okay, talking about evidence-based practice, and we posted all the research on the website, all right? And when we talk about research, we teach 18 lessons to ASD kids, and then we track them out on the recess playground, because that's where the rubber really does hit the road. Hide behind bushes, videotape them. It looks weird. And the graduate students camouflage themselves. But it's pretty cool. All right. Tough Kid Stuff's Evidence-Based Practice. This book, the one like classic coats, comes with a CD-ROM. And in the CD-ROM, it will give you all the references by technique that's in the research literature based on the Tough Kid intervention. So when someone says, where did you get mystery motivators from? You say, well, there's 30 publications. There's now 33 using mystery motivators to change kids' behavior. You know, it goes on and on and on about. So we put it right in the book for you. This is the Schools for Intervention. Really like this one, but this is what it looks like. It'll give you the reference. It'll give you 10 steps on how to implement the intervention, where it came from, and then gives you like a Zagat rating, like Zagat rates, you know, restaurants for ambiance, food, cost. We go through, we know all the basic components that will stop you from using an intervention, and we rate that intervention using that scale, and we give you a number. So you can look at the number and see what's hard and what's easy. Okay, Tough Kids. Major reason teachers leave teaching the first 2 years. And, whoops, that shouldn't be there. This is, I love this. This is out of an education trade magazine, and it's a joke. And I used to think it was bad. Now I think it's great. Why? Because it's a market. You'll go through your whole career and not learn how to manage your class. It says, can you help me, Mrs. Martin? This wasn't covered in any of my education classes. I sold 50,000 Tough Kid books in the first 3 months we put it out. Let me tell you, it's a record. I went down and bought a bass boat. You know, it was the best thing ever happened to me, and I wasn't going to write that book. Okay. But if we look at this, our Tough Kids, if you're into PBS, and I hope you are, this is the triangle. Everyone's a triangle now. No one realizes the triangle came from public health. You know? They think this is brand new. It's been around since typhoid fever. And, you know, this is the goody two-shoes kids. These are your 80%ers that walk into your school every day and say, oh, I'm here to learn. Thank you so much for going into education and sacrificing your economic future for me. You know, I'm here to learn. Please teach me. Could I do my homework? Could you give me more? I'd like to stay in at recess and do it. And you say, great, goody two-shoes. You're exactly the kid I came in for, blah, 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 blah. We think all kids should be like that. Well, it's not like that. It's the real world, because they're quickly followed by the 15%ers, a scruffy-looking bunch here. They're under about 3 ODRs a year, office discipline referrals. They're just waiting to tip off the edge and be a tough kid. Okay, they're right on the cusp. They have academic and behavioral difficulties. And then the top is what we'll talk about today is the tough kid. He's your 3 to 7%er. If this model breaks down, it breaks down around this kid, because a lot of the interventions designed for down here does not work here. I'm a firm believer in functional behavior assessment. Whenever somebody says, well, let's do a functional behavior assessment on him, and I say, and then what? Okay, you just can't FBA him to death at the top and leave him, okay, because he's still going to go through with his behaviors. All right, they have labels. I'll go these labels really quickly. You're either behaviorally disordered. It depends on which state you live, okay, and if you've got medical insurance, you're behavior disordered, seriously emotionally disturbed, conduct disordered, omniscient disordered, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. You're either BD, SED, CD, ODD, or ADHD. If you have a D in your label, you belong in this workshop. It's true, because it stands for disruptive. There are 3 labels I don't like that's attached to these kids. One is reactive attachment disorder, because we've killed 3 kids in the last decade with the stupid interventions in Utah. Colorado's outlawed it with the Candace law now. I think it's a very poorly researched technique or label. Number 2 is intermittent explosive disorder. You don't see a lot of this, but it's sort of like, I have to blow up to get rid of my anger I have inside of me, which is a reservoir. No research on this for kids whatsoever. It's like kleptomania, you know, Winona Ryder stealing the bracelet to reduce her anxiety, $5,000 bracelet. The judge says you can wear it in jail, you know. And then the last one I worry about because it's overdiagnosed for kids. Overdiagnosed. And the trouble is, it's a great clinical category for young adolescents and adults. It's a lousy category for very young children, and that's bipolar disorder. It's way overdiagnosed with young children. And I'll leave it at that, but if you want to see something just absolutely shocking, you know, you like PBS? I like PBS. It's one of the things Trout Unlimited, you know, the Humane Society, and PBS and NPR are my 4 big contributions, okay? And Frontline has a special series on this called The Medicated Child. If you believe in bipolar disorder for 4-year-olds, look at that and reevaluate what you're looking at, okay? All right, this is my definition of a tough kid. This is what we'll run on in the next hour. This is what this whole model runs on. Tough kids have what we call behavioral excesses. They have the big 4. They got the big 4. And the big 4 are noncompliance, aggression, they're argumentative till the cows come home and they destroy property. The 2 most deleterious behaviors up there is being noncompliant and argumentative. We shoot for those for being tough kid. Not being aggressive, believe it or not. It's being noncompliant. It's going to cause you more trouble. Now, this always looks like the tip of an iceberg. Like a tip of an iceberg. These things stand out in people's mind because they impact you directly. You know, if he's just burned down your school, that seems to make an impact. That's an externalizing property destruction behavior. It's what's below the surface is what kills these kids, and you should be here at this conference for. And that's the behavioral deficits these kids show. They show massive deficits that we don't do very well with, all right, in the long run. And first deficit these kids show is, number 1, they are what we call contingency governed. They are not rule governed. They are contingency governed. They are not rule governed. Now, I'll define what contingency governed means twice because it's so important. Contingency governed means the next thing in your environment which captures your behavior will impulsively control your behavior. The next thing in your environment which captures your attention will impulsively control your behavior. They are not rule governed. Now, I just told you what the best intervention you can do for a tough kid is. You got to walk out of here if you're thinking of dealing with tough kids, and that'll be the first thing on your agenda. And that's not to teach them how to be rule governed, because they will not learn that. The research is clear. They will not learn that. You'll have to supply rules. It is this, the most important thing you can do for a contingency governed kid that is not rule governed is supervision. Supervision rules. If you're having problems with a tough kid, look at your data system to see which kid and where it's happening and with whom. Supervision rules with tough kids. When the tough kid is supervised, the tough kid doesn't get in trouble as often, all right? And people say, well, Dr. Jensen, why can't he become rule governed like Goody Two-Shoes, who's inculcated values and the rules of our community? It's just the way it is. It's not going to happen. I wish it were. If I had a way to teach these kids rules and they would use those to generalize in situations and hold up their behavior and say, this is my rule, should I do this? I would do it in a heartbeat. What happens with them is they hold up their behavior and they hold up this one and says, he's doing it, I think I'll do it too. That's immediately what happens to them. Supervision rules with these kids. Okay, number 2 is they're socially unskilled. You know, the average time it takes a tough kid to be rejected by a set of Goody Two-Shoes peers. Goody Two-Shoes peers is 45 minutes. When you force them in with Goody Two-Shoes, 45 minutes for inclusion. There you go. It's Hill Walker's data. Great. Put them in. See what happens, okay? 45 minutes, if they're not prepared, they're going to be demanding, and they're going to push other kids around, and they're going to be rejected. They need social skills training, but they need social skills training that generalizes. And the last is why we're all here. They're in academic deficits. 80% of tough kids have academic problems, primarily in reading. We'll talk about that. Oh, okay. Now, this is not going to be as popular as other RTI presentations. But this is our take on RTI from tough kids dealing with hundreds and hundreds of them. Okay? It is the triangle again. We all like the triangle. The triangle's cool. It came from public health. And this is the RTI model. And it's better than the discrepancy model. Far better, I believe. But number 1 here is this whole thing is predicated on an appropriate general reading curriculum. for your 80 percenters. That means your assistant superintendent in reading has picked the good curriculum, okay? Good luck if that happens to you. We find that doesn't happen often, all right, even though they are the assistant superintendent. Now, you're all here. You're going to be a different bunch of folks for me, I think. But when I talk to educators, I like to look you square in the eye and say, how many of you can judge an adequate reading program? How many of you were taught to judge an adequate reading program? Because if that puppy ain't appropriate, that whole model falls. You got a crappy program, you're into balanced literacy, you're into reading recovery, good luck on your triangle. It's going to crash around your ears. Then, if it does crash around your ears, you need to go to Tier 2. And Tier 2 is specialized academic interventions. The trouble with these puppies, for us in RTI with Tough Kids, it's generally more of the same. It's more of this, just done up there with the same crummy reading program oftentimes. But you got to tutor with it, all right? Good luck. If you got a lousy program, see if it works very well. And then, of course, the piece de resistance is the very top. And that is, boom, intensive interventions. Few and far between. Now, I love listening to Mark Shin when I came in because he has some really good interventions on this model, but this is not what we generally find. Most of the time we find out people don't know what a good reading program is. It's been dictated to them. I equate reading publishers with like meth dealers. They don't care. They just want to sell it to you, you know. They just want to sell it to you and have you shoot it up, whatever, you know, in the kids. All right. It's got to be more than the same here. And then you got to go back to the first question the person asked. The older you are, the harder it is to climb this triangle. Why? You hate academics because you failed so many times with it. So you'd best have something in place for these kids. Okay, academics and tough kids. I'm a direct instruction guy. Okay, people always say, well, what reading programs do you like? I'm old school, man. I mean, I went back to Distar and Mastery Reading. I taught my kids to read with Distar. But are there good reading programs now? Yeah, they're great reading programs. Language, rewards. There's some really good ones. Read well out there. But they're all basically phonemic awareness, direct instruction programs when you really look at them, okay? Whole language, balanced literacy, reading recovery, I won't go through this. This is just the reading data from San Diego School District where they cut the reading achievement level in half in 1 year, which is pretty darn good to be able to do. Using a whole language balanced literacy program. Okay, if you think you know what a good reading program is, if you think you're a really good judge, I make my graduate students read these, and they're school psychologists, okay? This is, you can download it from the internet, okay? This is by Louisa Moats. It goes through what a good reading program is like a hot knife through butter, okay? And she takes names and spells them out about what she thinks is good and what she thinks bad. I think you have to have this in place. Okay, now, people will say to you, and then we'll get into more interesting things. People will say to you, but Dr. Jensen, the research hasn't been done. You haven't read the research then. Buy this book. I've never been able to get this guy to come out. This is Visible Learning Laboratories. It is 800 meta-analyses on achievement in academics. That's where they reviewed the research literature. This is evidence-based. 800? Give me a break. And they give you a little gauge up here. This is the most scientific review of any educational research I've ever seen. And the little arrow, the higher it goes, like direct instruction here, the better it is. Here is whole language. I mean, it is a really bad. You can look it up in this book, and this guy must be ASD, Asperger's, somewhere in a cave in New Zealand, because all he does is review the educational research on this stuff and put it in a book. You know, I've never been able to talk to him. He doesn't return my emails, but I love his stuff. It's worth the price. When someone says it hasn't been done, you can look it up, okay? Things that we need to consider with RTI. Number one is you got to have them do more of the same. Extended practice, although they're lousy at it and they hate it. So you got to have them do more of the same. That's it, extended practice. So we're very interested in how to extend the practice on things that matter, not all the capitals of the counties of your states. It is things that really are going to matter for that kid in the long run. You got to realize they have a conditioned aversion to academics. They're not going to do it for the love of learning. The older they are, the less love of learning they have. Number three, you got to look at motivational issues. provided, and we'll talk about that. Now, this is one we've been very interested in, and I hardly ever see this in any AYP or RTI conferences, and that's you got to accelerate the learning curve on basics for these kids. That is, they got to learn faster than goody two-shoes. Now, that sounds like Star Wars and putting the shuttle up. But I tell you what, if you want someone really good to come to this conference sometime, get Chris Skinner from the University of Tennessee. That man knows how to accelerate the learning curve. And I'm not talking, this fluffy duffy stuff. I'll show you some very specific examples. This is what I mean by accelerating the learning curve. You learn, because you're a good learner, in a negatively accelerated curve like that. That's how all your learning looks like. It looks like that. You have trouble, you start catching on, you learn very fast, rapidly, you asymptote when you've got it mastered. That's how it looks. Tough kids learn like that. They keep struggling, making lots of errors, struggle. You look like that, they look like that. I'm interested in accelerating the learning curve so it looks like that. And there's only a very few things you can accelerate the learning curve in. It ain't going to be all the capitals of the states. It's going to be things you almost have to memorize. Math facts make a huge difference. Multiplication tables, sight words, all those issues. Now we'll talk about that as we go along here. And then, man, I heard this at the end. If, Anita Archer's name came up. Talking about 6th graders going into middle school. I think it is a travesty and horrible to send any tough kid from elementary into any secondary learning and they have not had a pass at a good study skills program. Anita Archer's Skills for School Success is my very favorite. Because they're going to go from 1 or 2 teachers in elementary who love them and like them to 7 teachers, and they're there to teach. And they ain't interested in having you help that kid. They're there to teach history. And 80% of you are doing one skill right now. What are you doing? You're taking notes. They're going to be expected from the 6th grade to the 7th grade or the 5th to 6th to take notes. Anita Archer's program. There's others. Deschler's program, but I like Anita Archer's because it's simple. It's got a note-taking program that you can teach a turnip how to take notes, called indentation note-taking. We look at research and combining that with what we call self-management skills and put them in a group and tracking these kids when they go in. That is an AYP skill you best have on an RTI model that not a lot of people talk about. Okay, extended practice. This is extended. I'm not going to go into a lot of this. This is having them do more. People say, homework, give me a break. Tough kids don't do homework. Yeah, tough kids do homework. My 2 graduate students, Dan Olympia and Robin Weiner, won the American Psychological Association best dissertation in a year in the whole United States for Division 16 in getting tough kids to do homework. It's all been published, and you can get really great achievement. You can't give them lousy homework assignments, but you can get tough kids to do homework if you set it up correctly. Peer tutoring, way underused for kids. Cooperative learning, putting kids in a group, generally doesn't do it. You have to put them in a group contingency format, and that's I'm talking too fast. Chris Skinner's program again. Kids will not learn if you just stick them in a group for cooperative learning. All right, that research has been done by Slavin. It's ineffective. Motivational strategies. Thank you. Here we have motivational strategies. We'll talk about a couple of these. Dots for motivation. Coming here today is worth for dots for motivation. Just for that one program. And I'm not going to tell you till we're almost done. Come on, you guys. It's going to be a long day. Loosen up. Lunch is around the corner. Mystery motivators. We sell 10 of them for $29.95. Advertising for success. It is the most underused intervention. It is phenomenally effective if you do it correctly. Okay? Self-monitoring. Here's accelerating the learning curve. Accelerating the learning curve components to it. That Houghton flashcard technology, hardly anybody knows what that is. It's an amazingly effective technology. Particularly when you combine it with 70-30 blending techniques. Glicking out of Minnesota did that. Incremental behavioral momentum. Matt Burns out of the University of Minnesota again. I'll talk about time presentation of problems. Cover, copy, and compare makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Here's our accelerating learning curve. We'll go back to time presentation of problems. Let's say you're trying to learn something. You've got to learn your sight words. You've got to learn your multiplication facts. Because they're going to stick you in algebra someday and expect you to do it. I asked my wife last night, when was the last time you used algebra? Not to offend any algebra people. But a tough kid ain't going to do so well in algebra if he doesn't have his math facts down. Time presentation's this. We didn't invent it. Great research base. Chris Skinner's done work. They get a tape recorder and they present you a problem. Let's say it's multiplication facts. And the first fact is presented to you so fast you can't answer it. It's a 1 second delay. So it goes 2 times 2, 4. Boom. It's what is it? What? Couldn't tell you. It's too fast. 2 times 3 is 6. Boom. 1 second. Once you go through and you circle them all on a piece of paper, then it goes through and starts to give you 4 second delays. 2 times 2 is 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 4. Then it comes back when you get those and goes at 2 seconds. 2 times 2, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. So it's 1 second, 4 second, 2 second. Got it? They don't like it. They don't like it because you got a stupid tape recorder doing this stuff. Tough kids, they go nuts. 2 dissertations on this now. About ready to publish this. They go nuts when you hand them one of those. Say, take this iPod, kid. Put your earphones on. Go practice your math facts. You know when you got them, when the goody two-shoes little kids walk up and say, when do I get my chance with the iPod? Well, it's a pretty prestigious thing. You got to learn your times tables. This is one that we did. This is a set of data. We haven't published this yet. We're doing it with sight words right now. And this is multiplication math facts. Now, these are 4 kids, multiple baseline design. Does this not look like a tough kid learning curve? Huh? Does that look like a negatively accelerated curve? It does. Kids mastering it. Stupid thing. Mastering your math facts with an iPod. You know what the next generation is going to be? And I can't find the programmers to do it. We're looking. We have an app for that. Because everybody and their dog are getting these tablets. We got an app. You want to learn your sight words? We got an app for that. You want to learn your multiplication facts? We got an app for that. Time presentation. Plus, we're looking to build in a mystery motivator or reward spinners right in the computer system if we possibly can. Okay. This is study skills programs. I'm not going to go through this. This is the one I like. This is Anita Archer. Tells you every skill you need to know from 3rd grade through high school. Okay, assumptions for tough kids. Then we'll rock into motivating these kids. Assumptions for tough kids. You violate these assumptions, you're going to hurt a tough kid. Okay? These are the assumptions. Number 1 assumption. You're going to manage tough kids, you're never going to cure them. That's it. Sorry. School's out. If he's a tough kid at age 5, he's likely to be a tough kid at 18. You'd best manage your system. Don't expect him to be turned into goody two-shoes overnight. The research says you're not going to take a conduct disorder kid and cure him. You're not going to take an ADHD kid and cure him. You're not going to take an ASD kid generally and cure him unless you get to him really early. And trouble is, you're in the management mode. I'll answer questions at the end. You're in the management mode. Pardon? Oh, that is a good question. Jeez, what can I say? Uh-oh. Thank you. Now we're messed up. Are there any questions? Now we're messed up. Oh, gosh. And I was feeling so good about this. We need to get an IT guy. Okay. I can do the 4 assumptions here while they're doing the
It's just easy. Okay. It might be an easy fix.
Okay, 4 assumptions with tough kids. Number 1, you're going to manage them. You're not going to cure them. Got it? You're going to manage them. You're not going to cure them. Number 2, assumption for tough kids. It's multiply caused. It's not one thing. And we'll talk about that. It's not one thing. It is not just the parents. You got it? There we go. Good going. Excellent. Uh-oh. Now we get, okay. All right. They're managed. I will not sit up there anymore, and I will entertain any question you have throughout the whole thing. As a matter of fact, lend me your name. I'll get you a free Tough Kid book for that. Okay. Number 2. It's multiply caused. It ain't one thing. This is my favorite cartoon to show parents. They laugh at it. Hey, what the tough kid's doing at school, he's doing at home. He's doing at home, he's doing at school. Okay? It's stupid to blame each other. And this is my favorite cartoon. Here you have these 2 shredded people. It says parent teacher night, and he says, oh, you must be Timmy, Dad. I'm Timmy's teacher. Number 3, positives work best with tough kids. Adversive procedures, they're 3 times immune to punishment. That's what the Oregon research says. They can take 3 times what the regular goody two-shoes kid can. You know, they'll take what you can bring on, essentials. So what they're not too used to is positives, okay? Positives work best. And the last one is the mystery assumption. Write this down. You're going to leave here saying, this is an epiphany for me. This is an epiphany for me. I'd never realized this. This is really worth knowing, okay? You can share this at cocktail parties tonight, the whole 9 yards. The mystery assumption. Here you go. Ready? It's easy to miss this. Never, ever, 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 ever go on a field trip with a tough kid. I said this in Chicago 5 years ago, and I thought I was going to have to pick this lady up with a sponge. She was laughing so much, and I said, "Lady, it's a joke." And she says, "Dr. Jensen, it is and it isn't." And I said, when people say that, they got a story to tell you. I said, "All right, tell me what the story is." She says, "Well, I'm a teacher of self-contained ED kids, 12 of them, and they were doing so well," she said, "we decided we were going on a field trip." And she said, "But we prepared for it." Yeah, like, this is going to help. It's like preparing for the nuclear, explosion or whatever. You can do your best job, but one's going to blow somewhere. So she said, we practiced what a field trip, the purpose was, the rules of field trip. What happened if you got lost? What happened if a stranger approached us? We had it all down. They could tell me exactly. She says, we walked in the door of the Field Institute in Chicago, the Natural History Museum. She said it went out the window in a heartbeat. She said, one of the very first exhibits they walked up to had this big banner. It said, "Behind this curtain is the world's most interesting primates." And there was a curtain there. So what's behind the curtain? Come here. So I whip it back, and all these ED kids are looking at themselves saying, "We're the world's most interesting primates. That's us. We're the world's most interesting primates." She says they closed that curtain and went down and were looking at another exhibit. She says it wasn't 5 minutes later, she hears a blood-curdling scream and a thud. And she immediately looks for Rocky. Because if you've ever taught these kids, you got a Rocky and a Bubba, and if you can figure out where they're at, you got 90% of the thuds and screams covered, Rocky was nowhere to be seen. He had slipped away, went back to this curtain, got up behind it, and was waiting for the first customer. The world's worst customer, she said. It was like this 99-year-old lady in a walker with a cane hanging over, She walks up to this thing, and Rocky's back there ready to spring, and she's the world's most interesting primate. She whips that curtain back, Rocky jumps out and says, "Boom!" She picks up the cane and goes, "Whomp!" Lays Rocky out flat. But then she said it. And this is the whole point. It's not the field trip. She says, don't you just love them? Don't you just love the stupid things they do? Unless you like them, unless it amuses you, get out of education and go into dentistry. Okay. Okay, you got to like the kids and you got to like what they do, or you're not going to be a good teacher. You're going to hate your work. Okay, tough kid. What causes a tough kid? Go through this really quickly, and then we'll get into some interventions. It's multiply cause, not just one cause. Okay, these are all the things that we know go into making a tough kid, like a chocolate chip cookie recipe. Yeah, parent background. If mom's psychotic and dad's a criminal, yeah, it'll have an impact. But will it be a sufficient impact? No, it's not when you look at the research. Kids survive that, believe it or not, okay? Parenting style. Worst parenting style you can have, the parent just doesn't care. They don't care about the kid. Next worst parenting style, one parent can't set a limit to save their life, and they're inconsistent, wishy-washy, and want to be a friend with the kid, and they're in a relationship with someone who is rigid, punishing, and will not change no matter what reason, okay? Divorce, all the way down to genetics. Now, I'll go through this really quickly. People say, well, how much chicken and egg, Dr. Jensen? A lot of chicken, a lot of egg. For biology, because the last one here is genetics. We're going to talk just a little teeny bit about genetics, okay? Because, see, if the environment caused everything and every kid was the same, when I said, how many of you have kids who are exactly the same behavior and temperamentally, all of you would have raised your hand. Remember, nobody did. Having a kid is a crap shoot. They're different critters, okay? And genetics plays a role in it. And this is a meta-analysis on 3,795 twin pairs. 3 adoption studies, 338 adoptees. They're looking to see what's the genetic component that goes into antisocial behavior, which is what we call the excesses for tough kids, 50%. So 50%, big chicken, big egg. So you can do a little bit both. So this study, I love this study. If you're pregnant, this is going to shake you up a little bit. If you're thinking of adopting, get ready. If you adopt, if you adopt a male, you got a 1 in 3 chance of having a tough kid. If you have your own child, it's about 1 in 10. Okay, because you didn't do the Bill Jensen dating service check. You forgot the genetics part. You had the 3rd glass of wine. Okay, this study, they looked at these little teeny critters. These little cute little babies, little cute little babies, little blobs of fat. So you look at them and say, look at the little blob of fat. These are infants. Remember, this study's done on infants. Not on toddlers, infants. Chess and Thomas, Origins of Behavior Disorders, classic study. Little teeny babies, look at that little cute little baby. Could be anything, Dr. Lawyer, college professor, give them the right environment. Wrong. They come with 9 wires. And be ready for these 9 wires. Every time a graduate student comes in with their brand new little teeny baby for me, to look at the old doddering professor, look at that, I kept candy in my drawer and everything, let me see that cute little baby. And I'm looking and say, this is a really cutie. I'm doing this study. I'm doing the 9 checklist. And I just checked the critter out for autism. They don't know. They got a free eval right there, When they brought these little blobs of fat in, they looked at these 9 characteristics. First of all, these are blobs of fat. It's called the Chess and Thomas temperament scales if you're interested. Carrie also has a set of temperament scales that does the same thing. You look at it and think, look at that! See, some of these little activity levels, some of these little babies hardly move at all. They are like the Gerber baby. They just look there, look you in the eyes, smile, and goo. They, oh, look at that. Others look like Jell-O on a treadmill. They always have some bubble of fat moving. Rhythmicity. Rhythmicity is the second most important characteristic for a new mother to have in their child. That's how cyclic the kid is. And it affects mothers. You're only cyclic in 3 areas, and it's not your musical ability. It's eating, sleeping, and eliminating, and sleeping is the most important for a new mother. Third, approach withdrawal and adaptability. I love this one. Some of these little critters will take anything you give them, and they'll roll with it. Others, you change the slightest thing, they freak out. Now, I got to tell you this because you may not realize this. I'm going to take 1 minute. Haven't told many people this, but I am a grandfather. You don't realize that. And my granddaughter lives in Istanbul, Turkey. That's a jump to get to see her. We Skype her every Sunday. We Skype her, and she has my wife all wrapped around her finger by how much computer time she'll spend with my wife. But I got Layla wrapped around my finger, and this is how it all happened. Years ago, my stepdaughter was going to get married. My stepson came over with Layla, my granddaughter, and his wife. We're going to have a wedding. And so I watched these new parents come. And they're so on the spot because they're thinking, oh my God, he's got a PhD, she's got a PhD, they write books. So they're the perfect parents. They do everything correctly. I'm thinking this is going to go for about a minute and a half. They're grinding all the baby food. Hand grind it. No commercial baby food will pass Layla's lips. Bad stuff in that stuff. Well, that's pretty good to me. Give me the bananas. I'll eat it. Hell, she won't eat it. I'll eat it. So they're grinding this. This is true. One night, the first night they're there, we're going to this very fancy restaurant, and they're impressing me by grinding her baby food. I said, what are you grinding? This is, honest to God, this is what they were grinding. Broccoli, cauliflower, and kale. And I said, those are coniferous vegetables. They have an effect on the body. The new wife said, yes, they're very healthy for her. Layla's looking at me thinking, oh crap, what are you going to feed me now? So I look at them, they're shoveling this stuff in here, and I said, you're loading a bomb. You're loading a bomb, and sure enough, boom, halfway through dinner at this expensive restaurant, boom, she explodes. Poop everywhere. And now I'm the grandfather. I said, I will handle this. You have the diaper. I will change her. I'm experienced. She says, diaper? What diaper? What? You didn't bring a diaper? Perfect parent. You didn't bring a. Have you ever stood outside a female's restroom in an upscale restaurant waiting for the customers to come into the restroom? They look at you like you're, what are you doing here? The minute you ask that woman for a diaper, they melt. No, you need a diaper. I got a diaper. You want a diaper? Margaret, she needs a diaper. Get diapers. Hell, I had 6 diapers by the time. Go ahead, Leda. Do your best. I'll catch the next one. Boom. Let her flow. So, we're at the rehearsal wedding. The rehearsal. My stepdaughter and everyone's all up there. They stick me in the back, and they give me Layla. 8 months. First time she's ever looked at me. I have a picture of her. She's looking at me like, huh? And I'm looking at her, And they're all getting married, looking that way. And I'm sitting in front of all the refreshments they're going to serve. And there's a big chocolate cake. I whipped my finger through that chocolate cake frosting, stuck it in Layla's mouth, and then she's like a seizure. She went like that. Every time I walked into the room from now on, their whole visit, she'd go, oh. They all said, look at that. She's bummed at the grandpa. Yeah, right. He's stealing her chocolate. My wife still said last weekend, she says, how come Layla always spends a lot more time with you on the television? On the computer? No, I don't know. Just charisma, I guess, Intensity. Some of these kids are so intense, some are so laid back you can do anything. Others are so intense, their nature won't mess with them, Snakes won't bite them, birds won't fly over them, And I always sit next to them on airplanes. Threshold of responsiveness. Some of these kids, you have thresholds. Tough kids have low thresholds. That means, you got goody two-shoes in there. You could run a Mack truck to your classroom, throwing candy at her. She would not go off task. For a tough kid, if Tweety's tweeting 3 blocks away, they're looking for tweet, okay? Quality of mood, most important characteristic for a new mother to have in their child. And quality of mood is some of these kids are joyful, pleasant, and friendly. Others are unfriendly, unpleasant. Distractibility, attention span. I'm going to go through this really fast now. This will give you a reason why you're going to get tough kids, though. And this is why I really believe it. It's in all the books. It's in the parent book, and it makes a lot of sense to me. You wonder why would he have tough kids? When they look at this research, 40% of those little infants fell into easy temperament. That means they're easy kids. Makes you feel like you're the most successful parent, but actually, the kid's on automatic baby pilot. He'll do quite well almost anywhere. Easy temperament. God's good. 40% of the whole population they looked at. Next one, slow to warm up, is 15%. That is, they have difficulty warming up to change, but they're not reactive. Okay, the last one, difficult temperament. 10%ers. These are known as mother killers in the research literature. You get one of these, you want to switch to goldfish. Particularly if it's your first child and it's a male. It's true. The geneticists have a term for it called stoppage. You tend to stop having as many children. And that's true. That's true. Okay, and this is 2 parents finding out he's just got a difficult temperament infant. Parents love that one too, okay? And then 35% you couldn't type. Okay, now here's the whole deal. Okay, 18% of these easy temperament kids had problems in school ever. 18%, and they follow them all the way to young adulthood. Okay, 70% of difficult temperament, and there's the reference for you. You can get it off and look at it if you want to get the handout. Okay, but 70%. This is a genetically determined issue here. That's why I say it's just not so simple as saying it's one cause or every kid's going to fit the RTM model. They all come in with a little bit different variants. Some of them, they all come in with a little bit different variants. But for the longest time I said, why would God do this to you? Why would God let 40% of women off scot-free thinking they got the best parenting skills since June Cleaver, and then 10% who get difficult temperament infants are just slammed, smashed, and killed? This is why. I read this study. I thought, damn, that's why we have tough kids. American Journal of Psychiatry. But a psychologist goes to check out the temperament of Maasai warriors in Kenya. This guy's name's DeVries, okay? And only a psychologist would do this, but he's going to replicate the study in Kenya. By the way, temperament's cross-cultural, okay? It's everywhere. It's pretty much the same everywhere. But this psychologist named DeVries in this early study goes and knocks on the Maasai corral door, because these Maasais are a beautiful race of people. They're 6'5" on average. They live off of cows. They put a little plug in the throat, drain the blood out of the cow, mix it with milk, let it ferment for 3 or 4 days, and eat it. It's like yogurt we had out there. It's actually better for you than what you're going to have at your lunch. But that's their main food. And then they put the cows in here at nighttime. So this psychologist comes, only a psychologist would do this, knocks on the Maasai Thorn Corral door. The chief comes and he says, I'm Dr. DeVries. I'm here to check on the infants, your Kenya infants, your Maasai infants. And the chief said, well, yeah, we've been expecting you. We got the email. There wasn't really an email. They said, come right in. And what he found was exactly the same breakdown as New York City, where they did the original study. 40% easy, 15% slow to warm up, 10% difficult, 35% you can't type. This still gives me chills. He comes back 5 lousy months to check on those babies. Follow-up study. 5 lousy months later, check on them. 97% of that cattle have died of that tribe, of disease and drought. 97% have gone in 5 months. Every easy temperament baby was dead, except one. Every difficult temperament infant was alive, relatively healthy, and kicking. The others had died from malnutrition and disease. Every one of them was alive. When the going gets tough in fringe environment, tough kids get going. They'll get the milk. Everything that we punish in our industrialized society probably has a use in fringe environments. Does this make sense to you? I truly believe this is why we get, nature puts a 10% little insurance rate in. Every 9 kids are going to be great little kids, and then the 10th one's even going to be better because you get a tough kid. Lucky you. Okay. But this is the learning part. Now, if you get anything out of this talk, get out of this today, the learning part here. And this is the other part. You're not going to do anything about temperament. You're not going to be able to tell. You can always ask, how are your sister's kids? Which is not a bad dating question to ask, by the way. You got anybody in a mental institution prison? It breaks the ice. It does. Okay. But 50% of this we know is learning component. And you can do a lot with the learning. This is why it's a management thing, by the way. You're not going to have one little bolt you're going to screw down and cure this kid. You're into management. And so, I don't know what your kids are like here in Pennsylvania, although I was here 2 weeks ago, but they seem to resonate to this, but you may be a different group. Your children may not be like this. But we all know that I actually have data that show that kids like to live in slime and filth and toxic buildup. I do. It's the Achenbach data. They're all little pigs. From age 4 to 18, they're little squeakers. They love filth. All right, they're going to live in it. I always like to say to parents, you manage a bedroom, you never cure a bedroom. It ain't one thing. So let's say small animals are dying in the vicinity of your home from vapors escaping from your own personal kid's room. They've called, they're sending over a hazmat team. This time they're serious. Larger animals are starting to go. So you walk in, and there's your kid in his room playing that incredible game, that video game which you bought him, which will help him so much in adulthood. If aliens only would attack. Otherwise, it's useless. Okay. He's got dead peanut butter sandwiches underneath his bed that he calls his stash in case a terrorist hit us again. He wanted pets, and you like dogs and cats, so you start low on the phylum. You did the Saturday morning visit to Walmart, the aquarium section. You bought him guppies. We all done this. $15 aquarium, $5 of guppies, you're set. What happens to the guppies the first week? They die. They're designed to die. Okay, so you come back again. He's never changed the water nor the guppies out of this thing in 3 years, so there's new life forms. He has mold growing out of his closet that looks like portobello mushrooms. And you walk in, and you've got to get him to get the room clean. Now, I always love this. This is where you walk in and you say something. No, I'm sure it's none of you in here. This is where you walk in and say to your kid, "Isn't it time you got this room clean?" Kid said, "I don't believe so." Not from this little watch you bought me for Christmas, 3 years ago. Why would I clean it now? We've never cleaned it before. Or you walk in and you say, "To please me just this once, wouldn't you like to get this room clean?" Kid says, "In truth, not. I'd rather have you ticked off at me, your natural psychological state, and I'll live and slime my natural habitat." Okay? Now, the next time you say this, bite your tongue. I heard this in the airport just 2 weeks ago, and I laughed out loud when I heard it. It doesn't make sense. But it's the most used form that an adult uses to try to get a kid to do something. The most used verbal format, and it doesn't make sense. Here the kid's having a lot of fun playing his video game. He has slime and filth he's had there for years. And you walk in and you use this question. Laugh out loud. Bite your tongue if you use it yourself. You walk in and say to your kid, wouldn't you like to get this room clean? Kids, would I like to? Slime and filth, playing my video game. Trick question, huh? You having difficulty at work again? Problems sleeping? You didn't take your meds, did you? That's why you asked me. It doesn't make sense. And they are wonderful at ignoring us. They're just incredible at ignoring us. I mean, they're so good at it. They're so much better at ignoring us than we are them. So now you're going to cajole them into it. Now you come in and say, come on, hey, we'll do this together. We'll do this as a little family unit. As a team. You find out you didn't even make the team. And he is team owner, quarterback, and manager, but he ain't touching nothing. Now they delay you. God, they're good at delaying. When you hear the words, just a minute, you're at this stage in this model, by the way, just 1 minute, okay? So now you're getting ticked. Now you come in and say, now you better do it. It's time I really mean it. I am not going to ask you again. Oh, yes, you will. The research by Gerald Patterson, 10,000 hours observing in homes. Yes, you will. Twice past this point. Now the kid starts to give you excuses and arguing. Okay, excuses and arguing. And the minute you start to argue or exchanging excuses with a tough kid is the minute you start to lose the situation. And it's not a good deal. So now you're ticked off. You get upset. So now you got adrenaline pumping in here. You're pretty ticked off. Now you're steamed here. Okay, so now you come in and you level a consequence you haven't thought about. And it leaves your mouth and floats in the air, and you point at it and you say, that's stupid. No one can follow through with that. You know, your dad's dumb. Like, I'm going to throw all your toys away. That's a good one, yeah? Where you paid a fortune for those toys. Or you're grounded for a month. You haven't lived until you've grounded a tough kid for a month, okay? I don't generally tell you this, but I have a favorite activity. I go down on Monday morning, get Alex the cat, 18-year-old cat. He and I get along quite well. You know, we go down to my computer. I fire it up, bring up Google. Do this. It's a fun thing to do. Put special education teacher arrested. Seriously emotionally disturbed student. It is amazing what pops up on the internet, what people do to kids. Now, throw all the sexual stuff out, because I'm only interested in the really unusual, stupid things people do to kids. And I have a whole set of slides that I didn't put in here because we don't have time. You know, but there are themes. There are themes. You know, like love and marriage, horse and carriage, and I'm not going to touch this. You know, go together. Duct tape. Tough kids go together. Put it in duct tape. Severely emotionally disturbed behavior disorder students. See what pops up. Okay, aside from that, okay. So now you got your ultimate and tantrums. Now, this is my favorite cartoon for ultimates. What would the average tough kid say? Go ahead. Can I flip video it and upload it to YouTube? You know, that'd be the whole thing. You know. So now, this probably isn't your kids. But this is what the model says for tough kids. 60% of the time, if that kid can be aversive, ugly, difficult, 60% of the time, the research says, sterling research, superb, the adult withdraws the request, and every one of these things become rewarded and reinforced. Does that make sense? Every one of them. This is the learning component. It's not the only thing, but it's one of the major components and the one you can control. And these are all the things that happen with it. You reduce learning. This needs to be built into an RTI model because kids will use coercion to escape academic situations they have failed at repeatedly in the past. Okay? All right, there's a couple of ways to control this. One way is to level a consequence. Leveling a consequence is not a good thing to do with these kids right off the bat because it costs you a lot, emotion, effort. You're going to have to use them. Should be a second resort. There's a better thing to do. It's called antecedent control. An antecedent control is anything that comes just before the behavior and sets the occasion for it. It's like this antecedent happens, it's followed by this behavior. It's like you're driving down the road and you see a sign that says aggression. You go by the sign, there's a kid being aggressive with you. You go down a little further, a sign that says non-compliance. You go by that sign, there's a kid who's going to be non-compliant with you. You go down a little further, it says tantruming. By that sign, there's a kid tantruming with you. Okay? Now, the thing is to jump on the kid behind the sign. That'd be a consequence. Pull up the signs before you start to jump. The beauty of antecedents for this is there's 100% antecedent to this whole thing. And it's you opening your mouth. How you open your mouth up makes all the difference in the world. The major signature behavior of a tough kid is non-compliance to an adult request. That's why we put so much effort and research in looking at how do you get a kid to comply without a great deal of emotional effort. And it's antecedents. You do this, you get a 30% increase in compliance when you come home tonight. People say, well, 30% isn't much, Dr. Jensen. Not with my tough kid. The average goody two-shoes kid is 80 to 85% compliant. 80 to 85% compliant. Tough kids, 40% compliant. Add 30 to 40, you're at 70. You're within striking distance or normalcy. Go cheap, antecedent first. This is what we know makes antecedents work. Don't use a question format. Do not believe anybody that ever says you should always give a child an option. Number one, that person doesn't have a child of their own. Number two, that person doesn't work with a child every day, okay? If you can live with no for an answer, great, give all the options you want, but you're not going to be able to live with no for an answer for most of the things you want to get a kid to do for their own good, all right? For their own good. Don't walk in and say, wouldn't you like to, how about it, or let's. Those are all question interrogative formats, invitational. Number two, get close. We tell this to teachers, burn your desks. The average teacher in Nova Scotia, where this study was done, gives a command at 7 meters. It's almost 20 feet. If you want to get a kid to comply, don't make a move, okay? What are you doing right now? Yes, you.
Me?
Yes.
I'm watching you.
Where?
Your face.
Where in my face?
Your eyes.
Aha. See, because the next one is eye contact. And people say, how do you get eye contact? Well, what you do is you get close. Now, I won't pick on you anymore. We're about 5 feet from each other, okay? This is when a kid clicks on about 90% of the time and looks you straight in the eyes. Don't stop here. Get up close, take 2 more steps, and give your command from this distance, okay? Now, you have to be sensitive to this because some cultures don't like eye contact, okay? But some it doesn't make any difference to. I've got all kinds of stories about that. All right. You can only give 2 requests. If you give more than 2, you get what's called the nattering or the nagging effect. You reduce compliance. Number 3 is loudness. The louder you yell a command, the less likely you are to get total compliance. People say, I yell, he jumps. That's just right. Yeah, they'll jump, the research shows. But will they complete the action? You get a much more completed action if you give the command up close with eye contact in a low voice. You got to give the critter enough time. People say, how much time, Dr. Jensen? 3 to 5 seconds. They'll say, not my critter. My critter needs a month to comply, Dr. Jensen. No, 3 to 5 seconds. Trouble is, you won't even give them 3 to 5 seconds. You'll interrupt your own command 35% of the time in that 3 to 5 second window, and you'll interrupt it 2 ways. You'll either nag the kid in that window, or you'll give a whole bunch of different commands before you wait for the first one to be complied to. Always better be non-emotional, emotional. Biggest problems I have is middle school vice principals when it comes to emotion in these kids. They get out of control with the kids. And describe the behavior you want. Reinforce it. Remember, every time a tough kid does exactly what you want, 85% of the time, we ignore that kid and move on to the next one. 85% of the time, we ignore him and move on to the next one. If you want it to happen in the future, comment it on your socially. It doesn't cost you anything. Say, good job, like it when you do that. Okay. This is so important in Utah. We use a precision request format. It's the backbone of the Tough Kid books and the parent books. We didn't invent it. It's been around since the 70s. We use a signal word. So we give a command, please, and then we actually wait 3 to 5 seconds, the new research in the new book says. We wait 3 to 5 seconds. If the kid complies, you socially reinforce them. If they don't, we use a signal word. And we tell the kid, before we ever use a signal word, when you hear the word need, when I tell you to do something, you have 3 to 5 more seconds to do it, or I will follow through with a consequence you do not particularly like, and I'll still require you to do the first thing. Because sometimes they'll go through a consequence to escape the first. Okay? So I say, now I need you to. Is there anything fancy about the word need? No. But this is so important in Utah. Now, don't do this. Like, This is from LRBI. Don't do this, is what I'm saying, is don't go there and say, Bill Jensen sent me, can I have all your materials? They just hate me when I do that. I don't get any money from them. They get so ticked off. This is the Utah State Office of Education. We help them set this whole thing up, the universities. You know we teach you at universities, and so we set up the LRBI site, Least Restrictive Behavioral Intervention site. You can put it in Google. You can put a Utah State Office of Education, bring it up on the website. All the videos are downloadable. You can show them to anybody. Everything you can do to a kid, they got a video, and they got a basic description on how to do it right. And this is the one on precision commands. Oh, shoot. I've got to have this. Work. Aha. There is a God. At least a technology God. Shoot. Well, hold on. I can do this. I'm a trained professional. You guys are not engendering much. This is jazzy music for Utah. You gotta get special permission to use this music. Mormon Tabernacle Choir, kind of heavy for an educational video.
Precise verbal statements used to increase student compliance. For example, this teacher will use precision commands to increase a student's compliance to school rules.
Nice job walking, Hans. Good. Way to go, ladies. Nice to see you. Good recess? Yes. Good. Good. Mr. Higginson remembered to walk. Yay. Way to go. Way to go. Danny. Please go back and walk in the hall. Just a second. Danny, you need to go back and walk in the hall now. Oh.
Now, will every kid do that? No. Will the vast majority of them do it? Yes. You're playing the odds. You're going cheap first before you jump on a consequence.
Come on back. Nice walking this time now. Better way to walk in the building. Thank you.
The teacher only used the first two steps of precision commands because the student readily complied. Let's examine each of the steps. First, give a polite, effective command.
Danny, please go back and walk in the hall.
This teacher began her command with the word please and specifically described what she expected the student to do. To make a precision command more effective, stand within 3 feet when giving a command.
See? Pretty neat, huh? Ruler popped out. It was my idea.
Establish eye contact and use a calm voice like this example.
Oh, Danny, please go back and walk in the hall.
Try it now.
Let's return to our seat.
Wait. A precision command is not an invitation.
Would you like to return to your seat?
Hold it. A precision command is not a question.
Do you want to get hit? Sit down now.
Stop. A precision command is not a threat. A precision command is a precise statement describing what you want the student to do.
Okay. Please return to your seat, Alan.
Excellent. Now try it from the top.
Please return to your seat, Alan. Thanks for following my directions, Alan.
That's right. Let's return to our school rules example. In this case, the student failed to comply within 3 to 5 seconds. Therefore, go to step number 2. Give a second command.
Okay, I'm going to really try to zip through here now and go through some incentives. But, no, I can't get this stupid thing. There we go. Okay. I want to give you some practical things before we go. Supervision, number 1 intervention for tough kids. Number 2, if you're trying to improve noncompliance in tough kids, your second intervention is you should give a command correctly. Okay? Maximize your antecedents. You don't have to use our precision command sequence, but make sure that you make it a non-question format. Eye contact, you're up close, what have you. Makes a huge difference for these kids. But now I want to talk about how do you get them motivated. Remember, you got to keep them going at something they dislike and they hate and they've had multiple failures at. All right? And this is where I think we really shine. I'm not going to go through a lot of this here because we've talked about it. The one thing you have to really do ferret out, I think conferences like this are very good at this, I think Mark Shin is very good at this, is for tough kids, you got to find out what they won't do because they've had such a history of failure with it, and what they can't do because they don't have a background to do it. The trouble with most tough kids, it's a little bit of both, okay? It's a little bit of both. So you really do need, I think, curriculum-based measurement aspects to find out what is their challenging level to keep them going, and a good reading program to keep them going, okay? But if you're going to look at it for incentives for a tough kid, you got to think like a kid. We oftentimes think like adults, okay? And these are edible boogers. I cannot tell you how many kids I've had work for edible boogers in my life. We buy these by the case. They're microwavable. I had a kid come up in one of our pods. We're doing one of our research studies, and he says, Dr. Jensen, he says, I earned my edible boogers for today. And I said, you did, Jeffrey? That's so great. He says, yes, Dr. Jensen. Do you think we could go to the teacher's lounge and microwave them? Your first adult response is to say, no, of course not. Who's ever heard of microwaving edible boogers? But then you think, hell, sounds like a good idea to me. So we took these puppies down there and we put it on the male, all the males only have one way to program a microwave oven, 5 minutes on, high, beep. These things exploded and incinerated all over the microwave oven. We scraped them out with a scrubby and got them all out. We found out if you put a pinhole in them and put them in for about 20 seconds, they come out perfectly. And he opens it up and they're running out and he says, oh, Dr. Jensen, snot. Sell a kid snot if he'll do his homework, or he'll learn his basic multiplication facts, or his sight words, or he'll engage in reading engagement in a reading program. Okay, sure I will. Okay. Now, there's ways to find out what turn kids on. Ask them. Ask them. But you got to realize they're going to try to Rolls Royce you, so you got to hit them with can't cost a lot of money, can't take a lot of time. Keep track of what the critter does. What the critter does a lot, the critter likes. Just observing the critter makes a huge difference. This is why we're so successful, I think, in our autism social skills training program, because we've observed these kids in free play situations for so long and what they do and what they don't like to do. Keep track of what they ask you for. What they ask you for a lot, they like. And if you use that, you have some natural incentives. Let them sample things. Put them out. See what they want. Give them a free day. Costco's does that. Sam's Club, how many of you guys eat lunch at Sam's Club? And I don't mean the $1.50 expensive hot dog. I mean the little sample lady that you've hit 5 times for the chili hot dog and you feel like an idiot, but you can't help yourself, okay? It's the same process. They know what you like then because you've sampled it, okay? But they're edible boogers. These are some things. These are tongue splashers, of course. This is Mad Dog mouth. A lot of people haven't seen this. You foam in rainbow colors like a Mad Dog. It's pretty cool. We didn't like this because it was $2. We have a special deal on can't cost a lot of money. This was snot you could take out of a nose. These are relatively expensive. They're like 65 cents. They're busted. They're 10 bubble gums. One of them is really hot. 9 are really fruit flavored. And they'd earn these. And the tough kids would lick them to find out which was the hot one. And then they would give them some. You want a busted? Be my guest. Take the red one right there, just for you. You can take the red one, okay? Think like a kid. Oh, okay. This is Umpel, Texas. This is worth it right here. And unfortunately, it proves one of my theories here about motivation. I'm in Umpel, Texas. This wonderful school psychologist named Ginger Gates brings me into a remedial math class in a high school and says, there's this kid and his head is down, his name is Tony, on his desk. And he's not working at all. And she says, what does he want? I said, what do you mean, what does he want? She says, you're always saying, think like a kid. I said, well, he wants to sleep. She says, not sleeping. And he has to stay here, she said, and it has to be legal. What does he want? Think like a kid. What does he want? You're always saying, think like a kid. What does he want, Dr. Jensen? I said, I don't know, Ginger. What does he want? What he wants? Not to do the work. Duh. That's what the whole thing is about. And I was just flabbergasted. She got those little teeny dots that you put on files, cut them up, put them in a pocket. Those sticky little dots. Goes up to this kid named Tony and says, Tony, sit up, sit up. She put an envelope on his desk and says, Tony, sit up, sit up. So Tony sits up. She's got proximity control because she's right there. So he sits up. She said, thank you very much for sitting up. Just earned you a dot. He says, what are the dots for, Ms. Gates? She says, pick up the pencil now. Get your pencil in your hand. So now he's got his pencil and he says, earned you a second dot. He says, well, Ms. Gates, what are the dots for? She says, come on, I'm going to help you with this first math problem right here. This first problem right here. Get you going here. So she does most of the problem. Puts another dot in there. He says, Ms. Gates, what are the dots for? She said, you do the next problem all by yourself. I'll tell you what they're for. He knocked the problem out like that. It's not a can't do, it's a won't do situation. And he said, well, what's the dots for, Ms. Gates? And she said, well, Tony, they're like frequent flyer miles. What the hell do you mean frequent flyer miles? And then she said, tomorrow, when you come in this math class, any problem on that assignment that you don't want to do, you take one of those earned dots and paste it on it, and you don't have to do it, you get full credit for it. She says, you know, you got them when they're working harder than they've ever worked in their whole life to get out of work. Does that make sense? Yeah. What's bad about that, it just proves they're working at something they dislike to get out of more of it. I mean, it is the motivation thing perfectly proven out, you know. We've done 2 dissertations in this. We publish this now. But be careful. We learned this the hard way. Be careful. Kids know where to buy dots. We found that out in one of our research sites. Benyon Elementary, 6th grade resource room. We had more dots than you could stick. Kids were giving kids, here, you want a dot? Take dots. Here, take 5 or 6. They're yours, you know. So you got to make them unique, and we did it by getting a little eraser stamp. You can buy a little eraser stamp and stamp the dots and make them unique. Okay, so you can do it that way. Hey, come June, 16 kids in this study. 13 kids had used every dot they'd earned to get out of math problems, homework assignments. They always had to do part of it. The funny thing is they never count how many problems there are, so you can put more in. You want to find out the problems they can't do for a curriculum-based probe? Check where they put the dots. Those are the ones they're having difficulty with. But 13 of them used, we had to cut dots in half finally. They were using it. 13 walked out the door in June. Every dot sold. 3 kids walk out, full envelopes full of dots. I thought, damn, that's interesting data. It's Pam Doyle's dissertation. I said, ask those kids why they didn't use their dots. You know what they said? I don't know. And then one kid said it, and I know immediately why. It's in the dissertation. He says, I just like collecting them now. Those are the first tangible signs of academic success that kid has had in math. 13 others, they didn't care about it. Okay? 3 of them, I just like, because there's nothing inherently valuable about a stupid dot. Does that make sense how that works? All right, let me see what else I got here. Think like a kid. Oh, anybody ever do Arazukas? Oh man, where you been? Come on, Arazukas. I learned this. This is an insatiable. This is an air gun you can shoot a kid with. You can't let them shoot themselves, but you can shoot them. They can earn the right to be zooped. And it doesn't cost hardly anything. They come in different colors. Cost $12.99. We use these in our programs. Oh, I hope this works. Work. We use these stupid things. The teacher, it was a music teacher in Waco, Texas, taught me about these. And she's not a special educator. She said it was really funny because parent-teacher night, the parents would come and want to be zooked. They'd say, because you zooked me. All right? See, thinking like a kid doesn't cost you a lot of money. Okay. Mystery motivators. 30 research papers on this. I only have one packet. There's only one packet. 10 of them. I can sell one of you lucky people. I cannot take credit cards. $29.95. 10 mystery motivators. They're really worth it. I sold most of them a week ago in Pittsburgh. Remember, I said what's important for me is to get people to do this stuff. It has to be simple, cost-effective, and the most important variable is time. See that? That is a mystery motivator. See, it's a joke about $29.95. This is an envelope. We even have envelopes in Utah. You put a question mark on this for mystery. Come on, get into this. You get a pencil, and on a piece of paper you write an incentive, and you seal it in here, and that's what they earn. Got it? You can tape it in the middle of, there's all kinds of applications. You can tape it in the middle of a blackboard. You don't want to walk in and say, you want to earn a mystery motivator? Make them beg. Tape it in the middle of your blackboard. They're going to see it. If they're a slow class, you can write all around it, you know. If they're really slow, you can take it and rub it against your cheek like that, you know. Sooner or later, they're going to ask, Dr. Jensen, what is that envelope thingy up there with the question mark on it? You say, I don't see an envelope thingy up there with a question mark on it. I see a mystery motivator. Now you're going to hook them like a fish. They're going to say, Dr. Jensen, what is it, a mystery motivator? You go rub it like this and you say, oh man, there's something in here. It is so cool. It is so awesome. Class would die for what's in there. I'll guarantee your next questions. Dr. Jensen, what's in that envelope thingy then? You say, I can't tell you because it is a mystery. And they always say mystery. They're hooked like a fish now. And then they're going to say, how do we get that, Dr. Jensen? Now you're on the road, okay? Don't do this. This is the same place where Tony was. Well, I gave a workshop there in Houston, Texas. My secretary came in a couple of years ago and said, where have you been? I said, Houston, Texas. She says, I thought so. She says, you making your jokes again, your dumb jokes? I said, yeah, why? She said, did you do the $29.95 one? I said, yes. He says, do you realize there's a teacher down in Houston, Texas just sent you $29.95 for the mystery motivators? She says, now what do we do? I said, get the check, we're going to lunch. I work with the best women in the world. They made this guy a mystery motivator kit. They got one manila envelope, 10 envelopes like this and put question marks on it, 10 blank pieces of paper, one pencil, and the best part, a reorder form. And they shipped it to him. And then we waited, 2 weeks for someone to complain. Nothing. And so finally Glenda called him and said, we've just been waiting for 2 weeks. Why would you send Dr. Jensen $29.95 for 10 envelopes? And he said, I'm embarrassed. He says, but my colleagues went to the workshop. They learned all about mystery motivators. They came back raving about them, but they wouldn't tell me what they were. But they said, for $29.95 and a limited time only, you can. Okay, I think I'm going to only show you one more. Because if you order now. I'll order now. That's $9.95. We'll cut you a deal. I'm only going to show you one intervention. There's other ones like changeable markers. It'll be in your handout. There's reward spinners, all these things. Individual ones, get them on task in a classroom. But we only have 15 more minutes, so I want to go through this. I want to show you an all-school application, okay, for discipline. And then we'll be ready for lunch. Okay, this is called the Principals 200 Club. The Principals 200 Club. And we've had, gosh, I bet 53 schools right now in Utah using this. We've done it for over the last, 13 years. And I learned this technique. Should not do this on camera. See, if you're a university professor, you got to get outside. You got to observe human behavior. You have to look at kids. I have colleagues that haven't left the university for 30 years. They don't know Eisenhower isn't president anymore, So I like to go out and observe. And I happened to be on one of my observation field trips to the real world at the Wasatch Brew Pub in Park City, Utah, skiing when I learned this technique. So I'm in the Wasatch Brew Pub. This guy comes in, puts $10 on the bar. I'm eating my hamburger, and the bartender comes over, hands him something. The guy writes on it. They put it on the bar and doesn't give him anything. That interests me. That's like kids walking out with dots. There's something going on here. Okay, for the next hour, 5 more guys came in. Lift operators, construction workers, skiers. They did the same thing. Bugs me. So I walk up to the bartender. I put $10 on the bar. Bartender comes over. Says, what do you want? I said, I knew it wasn't illegal because they weren't giving him anything. It wasn't drugs or anything. They were writing stuff. So I put $10. I said, what the other 6 guys got? He says, you're not a cop, are you? I said, no, I'm a college professor, a school psychologist. He says, well, you sort of look like one. I'll trust you. I guess I look like one, you know. What was it? I wasn't even wearing my tweed jacket. What was it? What? This is out west. We're not that sophisticated to run numbers yet. I'm sure it was like numbers. It's a form of numbers. You've all done it. Penn State participates in it. It's a football pool. It's exactly what it was. It was a football pool. That's illegal in Utah. But if you did this correctly, you could control a lot of human behavior in a school. So we've never told anybody this came out of a bar in Utah, and don't please tell them that. You know, they'd all freak out. You know, oh, positive discipline program in school discovered in a bar. Hell, we don't even have a lottery in Utah. All right. So it's called the Principal's 200 Club. Now you got to visualize this. Let's say you got a big wall, and up here you have a matrix, and in that matrix is 200 squares. Got it? 1 to 200. So pretend this is all numbered 1 to 200. All right? You want to make this so you can write on it in a water-based pen in some way. Then every morning, and we have a whole lecture on how you set up rules. Let me tell you, it makes a huge difference in schools. There's so many lousy rules out there. But you got to have, this thing ties directly to rules, very specific rules in a school, no more than 5. But every morning, before the staff gets there, the person behind the counter in the principal's office will take 10 coupons and put them in the mailboxes of school staff. Could be the lunch lady, could be the bus driver, could be the aide, could be a teacher. If you get one of these coupons, you are obligated, because we do this as a PBS voted on intervention, you are obligated to catch a kid in that school following your school rules that day. You got to catch them, because we tie it right to school rules. Got it? If you get a yellow one, you can catch a kid that you know, which is easy. If you get a blue one, you got to catch a kid you don't know. This is where you get generalization with school rules across the whole school, because you're going to catch a kid and say, you right there, I saw you, don't you deny it. What is your name? Kid will say, I was not doing anything. What is your name? Well, my name is Bill Jensen. What was I doing? You were walking down the halls, weren't you? Following the rules. So you walk it out, and you give it to the kid. Now, it's like, take this down to the central office and turn it in sometime today. So the kid goes down, so turns it in sometime that day. So you got the kid's name, Bill Jensen, issued by Dr. Death, following the school rules, walks down, gives it to the person behind the counter, and that person will say, sign in the celebrity book. Sign in the celebrity book. Celebrity book is stupid, but they love it. So they sign the name Bill Jensen, you know. And there's just this book they have like for weddings or funerals or whatever. You sign it. And some schools have them on dictionary lexicon stands, because they don't use them anymore because they're all online. But the parents love it when they're in the office. They'll flip to this thing and they'll look at it, you know. And the principal on parent-teacher conference night will walk around with it and say, oh, you're Bill Jensen's dad. And instead of saying, we were going to rent you a U-Haul if you'd switch districts, they say, look how many times your kid's name is in here. Okay, then you got to get a container. And you got to get 200 discs, because there's 200 squares here. 200 discs. Got to do this in 7 minutes. 200 squares. And each one of these discs is numbered 1 to 200. We've used poker chips in Las Vegas where we set this up. We like pennies. Why? Because they're cheap. You can get 200 pennies for $2. And they're indestructible. You know. And you have to engrave them, though. Got to engrave them. Only once, you know, and I've heard all stuff about you can't engrave federal currency. I said to one lady, hey, lady, the terrorists, FBI can't even count them. They're not going to worry about you engraving. So then you say to a kid, look away and pull a penny out. So they do, and you do not replace the penny yet. So let's say they pick out 153. Then you have the kid write his name right here, Bill Jensen in 153. Now this is on the wall and it's big. And this is just like sports pool. Whenever you get 10 in a column, 10 in a row, or 10 on a diagonal, those 10 kids get the principal's mystery motivator on Friday. Does that make sense? This is big. You want to get your tough kid name up there right away, and no one's name ever comes down. You never threaten kids to take their names down when they're up there. It's a real critical issue. When you get 10 in a row, 10 in a column, 10 on a diagonal, all of them go back in here. It takes 2.5 weeks, our research shows, to get a payout on one of these, putting these 10 out per day with 200 squares. And this is so big in Utah. And I'll show you this and then I'll let you go. You've been an awfully good audience. This is put out by our Positive Behavior Supports project in Utah. This is in one of the books.
Daniel.
What'd you do this weekend?
Anne-Marie.
I went to the rec.
Sarah. Also, I tell you the logo. Hey.
No, you're always hungry, man.
Hey. You shut up long enough to go where you need to go. I'm trying to take roll here. This thing.
Today, two, because there are so many countries in Europe. Hey, lady, you have been partying so many times in my class, I am sick of it. You come in here.
Do these situations look familiar? Is there a solution?
Absolutely. Our Principals 200 Club allows us to catch students being good.
I've been in this business for 31 years, and I've been around 8th and 9th graders, a little bit of time with 7th graders. And, you know, for the first time as an administrator, I can say that I have a program that can impact all kids. I don't care if they're resource kids, I don't care if they're on the football team or the basketball team, or if they're in the band. This is a program that will work for every kid in this school.
Our entire school staff, the secretaries, the principal, custodian, the bus drivers, and our lunch ladies are all involved in our program.
What I like about the 200 Club is it's very easy for the teachers and helps remind them to be positive with the students. And the students get excited when they get a card, get an opportunity to go down to the office and put their name on the board. It's great.
The aim of the Principals 200 Club is to catch students following school rules.
Heather, I really like how you're walking down the hall quietly, you're keeping your hands to yourself. That's excellent. You're following school rules. Get a guy.
Each morning, 10 staff members whose identities remain secret each receive a 200 Club ticket. Each ticket is then filled out with the staff member's name and the date. These tickets are then awarded throughout the day to students who follow school rules and procedures or who use appropriate social behaviors. Watch.
Alicia, here's a Skyhawk ticket for coming in quietly to math today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Make sure you put your name on it.
Okay.
When the staff member awards a ticket, she writes the student's name or has the student write her own name on the ticket. The student then takes the 200 Club ticket to the office for a number of rewards.
I got a Skyhawk.
Every time you turn the ticket in,
First, Alicia draws a number from a container.
phone up and call the parent at home.
Great. Can you write it?
Then she writes the number on the back of her ticket.
Putting 10 phone calls out a year. I mean,
She also writes her name in the
really
celebrity
impacts the
book.
parents.
Next, Alicia's parents are notified of their child's success.
And we wanted to say congratulations. Alicia won a Skyhawk ticket for sharing.
Parents are used to getting negative
Finally,
information from
Alicia's ticket is placed on the Principal's 200 Club chart for a chance to win the mystery motivator. The 10 students whose names are on the winning row, column, or diagonal receive the mystery motivator. A mystery motivator is a valued, unknown reward. Let's listen to what students have to say about their Principal's 200 Club.
These are real
tight. I think it's real cool.
It sets off a positive
We've
attitude.
been very proud of our junior high and middle school data using this program.
It makes you
It'll only take 30 seconds and I'll show you the
get
data.
that card, you know, it's not just, you know, you got the card. You know, you get respect.
You get a 200 club card by just being good in school, or if like a staff member sees you.
I'm going to stop it there. This is just some of the renditions. This is a principal's glassed-in office. This is tape. These are post-it notes with the names. This is Deerfield Elementary in Las Vegas, Nevada. The teachers quilted a quilt, and each one of these are a little pocket where the kids' names put in. This is etched right in the glass in Davis County School District. This is commitment to this program. Okay, they've been running it for years. And these are our data for right now. These are reductions in office referrals for disruptions for elementary school. This is a particularly problematic one. We reduced it by 75% using this. Here are junior high school tardies, suspensions. This is all dissertation research done by my graduate students. Those are pretty dramatic differences based on data collected from an all-school information system. This is the one that was really interesting for us. This is Cache Middle School. And this is their office referrals in 1 year. It's 2,500. It's a huge number. And this is the reduction using the Principal's 200 Club over time. That is an incredible reduction. It saved 15 minutes per office referral, ODR by the principal. He figures it saved him 57 work days in a year. 57 work days. And this is an all-positive program. And it is 12:15. You've been a great audience. Thank you very much.